So let's get into it. The first question I'm going to dive right in is one that I want to cover from Simon. So Simon has said, how to observe my thoughts. In this class today, what I'm going to be doing is talking you guys through a few different questions around how do we master ourself? How do we develop mastery over ourself? So I've got a list of questions here from my Instagram community, from you guys who are live on this call. And the first question that I want to address is Simon's question of how to observe my thoughts, because this is something that a lot of people struggle with, right? How do I observe my thoughts? How do I create some space between my mind and myself, right? Because oftentimes we get so caught up in our thoughts, we're overthinking. That can lead to anxiousness. It can lead to overwhelm. It can lead to frustration. It can lead to doubt, worry, concern. And it's essentially just all happening up here in the mind, all happening in the brain. The thinking is just on overdrive, and we get so caught up in it that it tends to control our life. Now, what you want to do when you want to master yourself is you want to have mastery over your thoughts, right? You want to be able to observe your thoughts. You want to have awareness of the thoughts, because when you can develop awareness of your thoughts or some observation of thought, like Simon's asked here, you create some space between yourself and your thoughts, which helps you to choose what to think better, right? If you're stuck in a train of thought that's not serving you, that's not helping you get to where you want to go, it's not benefiting you, it's making you feel like shit, then you want to obviously get out of that train of thought. Now, the best way to do that is to become aware of it, right? So with self-mastery, self-awareness is the key or the doorway that will lead you to self-mastery, right? So I'm going to type that into the chat box here because it's a great little mantra that you could use, right? Self-awareness is let's just call it the path to self-mastery. Just pop that in the chat box there. Self-awareness is the path to self-mastery. So if you want to master yourself, you should start with becoming aware of yourself. And that takes practice, right? You have to train your awareness. You have to strengthen your awareness. So your awareness is essentially just your ability to be present with what you are experiencing. It's your ability to be aware of what you are experiencing, right? To essentially observe what you are experiencing. That's awareness. I'm aware of this thing, right? Um, so how do you strengthen that, and how do you learn to observe your thoughts, you know, more efficiently or more effectively? One of the greatest ways, I believe, is through meditation, right? Because meditation is literally a practice of observing yourself without judgment and without attachment. So if you do guided meditations, right, you're usually listening to someone else. You're listening to them. You're trying to hold your attention on the words that the person is saying. Now, if you do guided meditations, sometimes you will get lost in thought, not be able to concentrate on the words that the person's saying. Right? I'm sure you may have experienced that. Maybe you've done a guided meditation and you've put your earphones in and you're trying to follow along, but you get lost and you're like, oh man, now I'm thinking about something else. So you get distracted. You lose concentration, right? Which is essentially what is causing you to get stuck in your thinking as well. It's because you're kind of you've lost concentration and you've allowed your mind to like take over, right? So what you want to do is essentially not allow your mind to take over, not lose concentration, not lose focus. So in a guided meditation, that would mean sticking with the words that the person's saying. Now, in a silent meditation, when you're just meditating in silence, maybe you put your timer on for 10 minutes and you meditate in silence. The practice is still just to be aware of the process that you're going through. So at the start of this call, before I started recording, we did a little meditation, and I was encouraging you to be aware of your breathing. Be aware of the inhale, be aware of the exhale, be aware of that feeling of calm that starts to come over your body. And so it's a very gentle practice of just being aware or being concentrated. Because all we're doing is we're concentrating on the breath. We're concentrating on the body. We're focusing on the breath. We're focusing on the body. Focus, concentration, awareness. These qualities are all quite similar, right? And, you know, oftentimes when you tell people you want to strengthen, when I tell people that I want them to strengthen their awareness, it's kind of like, well, how do you even do that? Or what does that even mean? It's essentially very similar to just strengthening your ability to be concentrated or to be focused or to hold your attention, right? To be concentrated on something is to hold your attention on something. Now, this is the great problem of the 21st century, right? Everyone's got ADHD these days. Attention deficit disorder. I can't hold my attention. Now, what I believe is that attention is something that is like a muscle. It needs to be trained. And especially in this day and age where we have smartphones, we have laptops, we have Netflix, we have social media, we have so many distractions. You have YouTube, you've got so many distractions that essentially like rot away your ability to hold your attention. It started with the TVs before we had smartphones and laptops and social media. It started with the TVs. You watch your TV and then you watch 10 minutes and then an ad comes on and all of a sudden you've lost your focus and now you're watching an ad and your show comes back on and then your ad comes back on and then your show comes back on and you're all over the place. Now that's absolutely 100 times worse because you're on your social media and every you watch a reel and then you watch another reel and then you watch another reel and you probably watch 5 seconds of each one and then you're switching to the next one and you're not holding your attention on anything. So it's no wonder that we've got this massive rise in ADHD or ADD or people can't control their mind, their thinking. It's just because like I really think it's like my no bullshit approach to this is that of course you're going to lose your attention if you're on your smartphone all day and you're on your laptop all day and you're not doing anything to train your mind, to train your focus, to train your attention, right? Um, I really believe that in this day and age, we have to train our mind. We have to become stronger with our mind. We have to become more disciplined with our mind. So when you're asking this question, Simon, how do I observe my thoughts? Practice. Like it doesn't just happen naturally. People always ask these questions, and they expect like, oh, I should just be able to control my thoughts, or I should just be able to observe my thoughts. Uh, and like, why can't I do it? And so if we can't hold our attention, people think generally the first thing that people do is they go, something's wrong with me. I must be fucked. Like I can't do it. But it's like if I went to the gym and tried to squat 100 kilos just off the bat, I wouldn't be able to do that, you because I haven't trained for that. Right? I haven't, I don't have that skill set. I don't have that strength, that physical strength. And so people think that they should just have attention or they should just have concentration or they should just be able to observe themselves like easily and not get caught up in their thoughts. But I really just don't think that's the case. I think that's unrealistic. I think that in this day and age, with everything that's going on, you need to train your mind, which is why I teach how to master your thoughts, how to master your emotions, and a big part of that is just discipline. Like in the same way that if you want to build muscle at the gym, you go to the gym. Or Simon, I know you're a builder, right? Like if you want to be a builder, you don't just go and you don't just know how to build a house. You have to go through a 4-year apprenticeship to learn how to build a house. 4 years, right? To be able to have that skill. And so, same thing with bodybuilding or going to the gym. If you wanted to get like, big and muscly, it doesn't happen overnight. It takes years of consistency and training and nutrition. And so it's kind of silly to think that we should just have our mind like really operating at the highest level. It doesn't work like that. It takes time and practice as well. It takes commitment. It takes discipline, and it takes a responsibility that we have to have over ourselves instead of just these days with things like mental health because it's kind of like new territory. It's like a new thing. because all of the smartphones and the technology is new in the last 10 or 20 years. We don't really understand it yet. And so people just go, I can't think properly. Must be something wrong with me. Go to the doctor. Oh, yeah, you got ADHD, or you got anxiety, or you got all these things. And here's some tablets, take the tablets, and that'll fix you. But it's kind of like, it's almost like, if you want to lose weight, another example, right? You want to lose weight, you could go and get liposuction or take like fat loss pills. Like I think that's a big thing now as well, like Ozempic or something like that, this fat loss pill. Anyway, you could do that, or you could just go to the gym and eat healthy, right? So we've got to decide how we want to live. And I really believe that when it comes to how do you observe your thoughts, it's a practice that you just have to be consistent with. That's why, Simon, the coaching that I do is like 6 months, because I know that 6 months of training, and that's really how I see it. It's like mindset training that will help you to observe your thoughts better and learn how to control your thoughts. So yeah, I know for you, like working with me is kind of new. We just started, so give yourself a bit of grace, and just keep being consistent, right? Keep being disciplined, and just know that this is something that you'll have to train. You have to train your attention. You have to train your focus, and that's a daily thing. So that's how I'd answer that question. Um, Rachel has asked, do you have a mantra you use to encourage persistence and consistency, please? I think that's a great question following on from what we've just talked about. Um, no, I don't have a mantra for that. But the way that I do it is I have like more of a vision for who I want to be, right? I have like an idea of the person I want to be. So I don't have a mantra, but you could create a mantra. I personally don't have one. Instead, I use a vision. So I have an idea of who I want to be, and that idea is like my North Star that is always, I'm always moving towards that direction. And if I start to, lose consistency, or, like over the last month, I've been a bit unwell, so I haven't been really consistent with my routine. But in the back of my head, I know I want to be this kind of person. And so, what I would encourage you to do, I know, Rach, like we did this in the beginning, right? We create a vision for the future. We create a vision of who do you want to be? And I'm often asking you guys, like, who do you want to be? Like, what kind of person do you want to be? Um, so I would really encourage you to get clear on that vision of who you want to be in the future, and allow that vision to guide you. And then you could create a mantra around that. But yeah, I personally don't have any mantras to help you with that. I'm sorry. But yeah, I would encourage you first just to think about who you want to be. Like, what's that vision for the future, and why is that so important to you as well? So for example, I know your situation, right? You want to be like a healthy a mother, or you want to maybe have a healthy family dynamic, be healthy in your relationships and that kind of stuff. So always thinking about, if that's the highest goal, then okay, why do I want those things? And also, who do you need to be? So I'll put it in the chat box, a little journaling process, right? Step one would be to write your goals and intentions. Step two would be to write why that's important to you. And step three would be to write who you need to be. So that's in the chat box there. So you can go step one, what's my goal? What's my intention? Step two, why? Why is that important to me? And then step three, who do I need to be? And I would actually encourage you to use that. That's going to be something that can guide you better than any mantra. Or after you go through that process of going, okay, here's my goal, here's my why, and here's my who I need to be. After that, you're probably going to have more clarity on a mantra that you could create for yourself anyway. So that's that question. Thanks, Rachel. All right, we have a whole bunch of other questions here from Instagram community. I'm going to go through and answer some of the big ones, and try to do it as quickly as I can. I'm going to try and bulk a few of them together as well, because I know it's already 7:30 in the morning. But one of the big ones I always get is like anxiety. How do I manage anxiety? So I've got a couple of these questions. How do I manage anxiety and panic attacks is one. And then another one is How do I control my emotions? I just find myself getting angry, anxious, and have a hard time getting out of it. So, how do we control our emotions? How do we control like anger, anxiety, and those kinds of things? Um, Firstly, like I'm always going to come back to just present awareness, which is what I covered in that first question. You've got to learn to become present to what you're experiencing. So whether it's a thought that you're observing, um, or an emotion, the same rules apply. You can still become present and aware of your emotion without letting it overtake you. So you can become present of your thoughts, or you can observe your thoughts without letting them overcome you, and you can observe your emotions without letting them overcome you. But it does take practice, right? And it does take awareness. And it also takes inquiry, like with your thoughts and emotions, you know, if you if they kind of just come and they feel like, oh, it feels really real. It feels like this is a real thing, like this thought is like so real. Um, or this emotion is like really real, like I'm justified in thinking this, or I'm justified in feeling this. We need to firstly just pause, just take a step back and observe and just become aware. Okay, now I'm aware that I'm angry, or now I'm aware that I'm like ruminating over thoughts and having negative thoughts. So firstly, you just got to step one is just to come back into awareness. Um, but then if you want to resolve the pattern of overthinking or of getting anxious or of getting angry, you've also actually got to inquire into it. So it moves from self-awareness to kind of like a self-understanding, right? So self-awareness is always going to be the first step. But if you want to move towards self-mastery, you also need self-understanding. You need to understand, okay, why am I feeling anxious? Why am I feeling angry? Why am I panicking? And start to inquire a little bit more deeply into yourself. But that second step needs the first step. You need to be able to be present to do that. You need to be able to be aware and focused and concentrated to do that, because otherwise you'll just get sucked up into it, right? And it's very easy to get sucked into emotions. Like I said, it's not something that just comes easily and naturally, right? That you can control yourself totally. Like, I really don't think that it's something that's easy. It's very hard, right? People expect that it should be easy. They have expectations of like, this should be easy for me to control this. And then because they can't, they think that there's something wrong with them. However, I don't think it's easy. It's not easy, and I don't want to like sugarcoat it for you, because I really don't think it is easy. I think it's something that requires a lot of discipline and a lot of commitment to achieve. It takes a lot of intention to actually become good at this, like this self-control and self-mastery and self-understanding. That's why I really believe self-development is such a powerful thing. That's why I'm so passionate about self-development, because, I've been doing this for years as well, like working on controlling myself. And still I feel like I've got a long way to go. I'm a lot better than what I was in the past. In the past I was horrible and like, you know, maybe not even aware that I was being such a shit person, right? Like when I was just drinking a lot or smoking a lot, or being a bit of a dick in my relationships, um, those kinds of things, right? Back then, I wasn't even aware of it. And it's because I've really done a lot of self-awareness work, and then a lot of like self-inquiry and understanding myself as well. And then that's led to closer to self-mastery, right? But like I said, it doesn't happen easily. It takes time, it takes intention, it takes commitment. The worst thing, you know, I think is our own privilege. Like, we think that things should be so easy. Um, like in the Western world especially, we get everything handed to us on a silver platter these days. Everything is easy, right? Like, and so we think that everything should be easy. However, not everything is easy, right? Some things are harder. When it comes to controlling your mind in a society and a system that is set up to steal your attention, literally. That's like the apps and the phones and everything are designed to take your attention. They want you to spend as much time as possible on their platform. So they literally design their you know their technologies around how do we keep people's attention for the longest. So you're in a war pretty much for attention. So you have to train yourself. And so when it comes to anger and anxiety, and managing those things, I do think that, you've got to kind of train yourself, which is why, that's why I run this free. This is a free thing on Wednesday, right? For the community, anyone can jump on these calls, and then I put it on YouTube because I really think that we need to know what we need to do, which is to train our mind to become better, right? To increase our consciousness, and that, like I said, that just doesn't happen naturally. Like that just doesn't happen like that, right? It takes intention. And that's why I run the coaching programs, right? Come into the coaching program and then you can follow a system and you can, really have clarity on, okay, here's what I need to do on a day-to-day basis, because no one talks about this stuff. Like no one talks about training your mind. Mental health is kind of like a weird topic where people are really sensitive about it. But you got to train your mind. So that's what it comes down to with the anger, anxiety, the panic attacks. It's like self-awareness is the first step, and then self-understanding. So that's why self-development is good, because you can move through this process, right? Which is what we do, even in the coaching program, the Conscious Creator program, right? First step is self-discovery, which is always getting to know yourself better, and building self-awareness. Step two is self-healing, which is like really starting to understand yourself a lot deeper. When you get to that self-healing stage, you start to understand why that you do the things that you do and where it's coming from. And you start to look at your past and why things happen the way that they happen. And then you get to change your perspective as well. So once you start to understand better, then you start to change your perspective. And that's when you start to move towards step three, which is the self-mastery, because you're shifting your perspective, or the lens through which you see the world. Um, and I think, like the rest of these questions, how do I stop thinking about what other people think of me? How do I put less pressure on myself in relation to making mistakes? How do I train my brain into not thinking worst case scenario? All of these questions can be answered with what I've just said. How to not be afraid of life-changing decisions. That's one where you just have to rip the band-aid off, right? Like, and coming back to what I said of having the vision for the future, once you know what the vision is, it's much easier to make decisions, because you can go, is this decision aligned with the person I want to become? And if the answer is yes, you just got to rip that band-aid off and make that decision. If the answer is no, you don't have to worry about that decision. But you've got to have that clear vision of the future, which is one of the first things we do in the coaching program as well, right? We create more clarity around the vision. And then what happens as well, I've worked with people for years. There's always going to be like, we create that first vision, but then after 3 months or 6 months, when you start to create some changes and you start to see things differently, that vision is going to get upgraded, right? And then maybe a year or two down the track, maybe you actually achieve that vision, and then you want to set a new vision, right? So the vision thing is always good, to be future focused, to start to be defined by a vision for the future, as opposed to memories from the past. Um, cool. How do I master procrastination and stop self-sabotaging? Same thing, clarity on the vision, discipline towards that, and then awareness and understanding, right? If you are self-sabotaging or you are stuck in procrastination, you've got to learn like why you're doing that, right? Um, Usually with self-sabotage and procrastination, it's it, I learned this from one of my coaches recently. Like living organisms, they never self-sabotage. So it's actually looking through it from the wrong lens. All living organisms move towards self-preservation. So everything that's alive will do its best to move towards self-preservation. So the continuation of itself. Now, humans are a little bit complex, right? So when we're procrastinating or self-sabotaging, what that actually is sometimes is us just staying as we are, which is like, I'm preserving myself. So let's say I kind of want to do this thing and I want to be better, but it's not really that strong yet, that I keep doing these other bad habits. So, but the other bad habits, that's all really familiar for me. It's really common for me to be doing those bad habits. So I'm actually just preserving myself. It's not that I'm self-sabotaging, it's just that I'm just staying stuck. But unconsciously staying stuck is actually self-preservation. I don't have to change. I just get to be me, right? And I don't have to do anything differently. I'm just going to procrastinate. I'm just going to chill. I'm just going to do nothing. But then we kind of have this looping thought of like, but I feel like I want to do that thing, but I'm not doing that thing. And they're like, why not? Because we're just keeping ourselves stuck in the rut. So if you want to have a different result, you actually need to move out of the comfort zone, out of what feels familiar, and you have to move into the unfamiliar, the uncomfortable. And usually that's going to be a bit fearful. Like, when you jumped onto this coaching program, I know a lot, like all of you guys who are on here now in the coaching program, there was probably a hint of like fear, like, well, I don't know, like this is a new thing. I've never done this before. It's a bit scary. And then, but once you cross that threshold, then it's like, oh, okay, sweet. This is awesome. Like, here we go. So there's always going to be, like a bit of a threshold that you need to cross. And oftentimes that can feel uncomfortable because it's going to be something that's different for you, which is going to be like, is going to be almost threatening to the self that wants to stay the same. So you need to kind of get over yourself to get over that threshold, which is in itself self mastery as well. That's self mastery. You have mastery over yourself. So you're not just letting your old self dictate the decisions you make. You're starting to act and choose to be this new self, right? So yeah, that's that one as well. And I think that's enough for today. Yeah, I think we've answered most of the questions that I think are really important for these issues. So yeah, that's it for today. Thank you for joining me, guys. If you have any other questions now, just pop them into the chat box. But I have recorded this, and this recording will be available if you want to watch it back, because I know we covered some really good topics today. But yeah, if you have any other questions to finish off the session, you can just pop them in the chat box now. But otherwise, that is some, really solid advice. And I want to just summarize quickly a few of the key points, right? Self-awareness is the path to self-mastery. So really working on training your self-mastery, your self-awareness, sorry, is going to lead you to self-mastery. And that's the best way to do that is through like routine, meditation, discipline, commitment, those kinds of things. That's what's going to help you train your focus, train your concentration, train your self-awareness, which is going to lead to self-mastery, right? Another point that we talked about is when it comes to the anger and the anxiety, self-awareness is the first step, but you also need self-understanding. So you need to learn to understand yourself, which is what we do in the program. We go really deep into that. And then really as well, you got to be mindful that yourself, like sometimes you will self-sabotage or procrastinate, and you'll be like, why am I doing this? But it's because yourself wants to stay the same. And if you actually want to make some changes, you need to get over yourself or master yourself and move into that uncomfortable zone and take those maybe a little bit more difficult decisions. But then on the other side of that is going to be where you want to go, right? They say that fear is a mile wide, but an inch deep. All you need to do is just step over it. So yeah, that's that. Any questions at all? I can see Simon, you've maybe unmuted yourself. No, maybe not. All good. Cool, guys. There's nothing else in the chat box. So yeah, thanks for being here. Appreciate you. Appreciate your time. Have a beautiful Wednesday, and I will see you soon. Bye.